I don't know if y'all have been following the feed tonight, or if you don't know who I am. Some of you do, some of you don't, but I'm an astronomist. I'm not an astrologist. Astronomy is extremely powerful. Astronomy does not, and an astronomist is not learned. An astronomist cannot be trained by an astrologist. The last astronomist that was here was from the Dionysus era. Astronomy is DNA. Astronomy and the stars keep track of long periods of time in the human race. Astronomy and a top half of the wheel and Pisces and Aquarius and the family lines that it was producing in Leo, the etheric body of Virgo. And I just needed to come on and make it. And I'm crying, but I'm stunned a little bit right now. My team has worked for 8 years. I've been in physical contact with certain people throughout this last 8 years, especially since 2020, the past 5 years. Very, very, very specific family lines that were around me this entire time because we were here to end this Roman reptilian, whatever it ended up being at end of days, that was trapping the entire collective in a lower vibrational field. And I can even explain to you why it was done. I can tell you how it started. But it really doesn't even matter anymore, because those DNA lines and what happened with the Aquarius age repeating over and over and over again, and the haves and have-nots, and the true inheritances that are here for the people, has been fulfilled. Now, we've known this with the astronomy. We knew, because our main mission with all of this, and why you even had the Vespa Virgins, why you had Venus, why you had connections that were spread out over time, why you know that your other half is somehow in a system and maybe not next to you, why, especially for all of those who proved this with me. Every single one of you that's been on a healing journey, we did this together. I know everyone doesn't understand the process of claiming. That's what I've been here attempting to teach all of you. And the only reason that I knew this process of claiming is because our family lines had all the claims. This is why hybridization and cloning and all of these things even existed. This is even why you have Roswell, and what those plasma beings were was way more connected to you than you could ever possibly imagine. And it is not alien. It's what was left. Our entire collective proved string theory. We did that over the past 5 years. The reason that astronomers, the reason that astrophysicists, the reason that scientists are shaking their head, scratching their balls, is because there is no way in science without an unseen force and a heart connection that is what Earth is. Could we possibly find one another if it wasn't for the stars, not the planets? If it wasn't for the stars and those connections and how that runs so deep inside your blood and your veins that you could never, ever, 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 I will never, ever, ever be able to firmly understand it. And I know more of this than probably anybody on this planet, but I still cannot 100% explain how it works. We've just watched it work. We've been in awe. We've been flabbergasted. We've been knocked off our chair. The pure that you get in these sequences, and what everyone needs to realize is that all of us who were here were pure when we got here. This has been going on for so long. And with the human race unconscious, and with these forces that are stronger than anything that I could possibly explain to you in a human form, became more and more and more purified in a polarized region inside a cylinder of what is a black hole that you call the Milky Way. The forces that it polarized in these other gates were far more evil than you could ever imagine. These are the entities that we had to deal with. That is what we had to do in the beginning in order to even make it back into here. And the stories that everyone will be finding out about how we got back in here are the solving of most of the things that you have found all over the world that you can't explain, from every single mummy and a princess coffin and some pink goo and a Siberian angel. And all of these things that you think are unseen are just left here by some strange way. We're all made through alchemy in space. They were all done from a human. Egypt, and what you call Egypt, was halfway. Halfway from where you would say that we came from. Halfway down into a lower energetic. Do you know why the princesses were carried around in Egypt? They couldn't walk on the ground. Weren't allowed. Were not allowed to put their feet on the soil because it was that tainted. Power is not something that you just throw around. Power, true DNA power, connected into royal lines, is not something that you just wear a crown and walk around and be in a castle and think that then everyone's going to worship you and that it's all fun and games. No, it's not what any of it was ever about. It's what it became in the end of days whenever all these other lines decided to try to be us. We didn't live extravagantly. The true royals and the ones that came from the people down here didn't live extravagantly. In fact, it was opposite. Extremely humble. This is how, when you meet somebody that truly has royal DNA, they're humble. They hear you. They feel you. They know your pain. They can feel it. We can feel it from 3 trillion light years away. So I just wanted to come on because it really is a monumental moment right now that we probably won't firmly be able to recognize 100% on the ground. Maybe it might take a year. I know definitely it probably won't, because of how fast everything is speeding up and because this is what was being blocked from you. My team made a command that at 11:22 p.m. tonight, and if it's already had passed whenever I made the command around 5 p.m., and that was before we even finished and solved this. At 11:22 p.m. across the board, across the globe, tonight and tomorrow night, there is a massive remembrance. All spells that were put on wine, bread, in order to make you forget whatever was being done across the board, to make you forget, has been undone. And if you think that that's impossible, then you haven't been on an astronomist team. The reason that an astronomist is only here whenever massive change is here is because it is what it does. It creates massive change. It happens overnight, just like when the lights went out in 1988, except opposite. We proved back to 722 and the year 1034, and we proved that that was paper clipped in 1831 in order to make a connection from Fomalhaut, which is at 3 degrees Pisces, to Virgo at 3 degrees Virgo. That direct line is also Gabriel's sword. This was also Excalibur's sword in a weird way, fastened at 27 degrees Libra, which was also fastened at 27 degrees Aquarius. If you go look at the Aquarian constellation system, there's an entire arm that runs off to the left that ain't even supposed to be there. I just wanted to get that message out. Today is a 5D day. The rest of this week, it will be a lot of change. It is going to go back down to 3D. But no matter, I know that this was one of the main purposes that I had to do, everything that I had to do, and keep track of everything that I had to do. And cleaning these DNA lines so that we would have one that would hold. That's all we cared about. We didn't care about the money. We didn't want the power, which is the exact damn reason that we got it. We came to heal the human race. We were here and sent here to heal the human race. We were hidden inside DNA lines so fucking deep, with so many shields and bubbles and glasses and windows and ogles and oogles and eyes that it was impossible to see us until it was time. The more that you attempt to find us, the further we were away from your view. The more that you attempted to mess with the process that was a 1,000,000-year reset down here, poor universal law, I don't give a goddamn about nothing that you call a law. It's Babylonian. It is what it is. We've all learned this is a human experiment, and the human race should have came out of this experiment a long damn time ago. Instead, everyone fell to the bottom and blew out a hole. This is why you didn't have a next chapter at the end of your books. The countries in NATO were very aware of this process. Middle East, very aware of this process. Asia didn't tell their people like Middle East, but very aware of this process. This was a process that they were able to connect and pull off and put their family lines in leadership because they would all band together and work together in order to do it. Right over your head. It's time for change. What we proved down here is that the human race is capable of running itself. Not everybody can do that. There is a split that has been going on for a long time. However, I'll just add this right here. It ain't necessary. It isn't necessary to leave anyone below. They're not even in a hole anymore. There ain't nothing called hell. The devil was made. Demons were being made because of the etheric body of the collective was so stretched from itself. And whenever you have an entire collective of human beings that is putting off energy into the universes more than you could ever realize, because Earth was a seed planet, all the living seeds were here. All the energetics that you see out in space, mostly 99% of it, comes from the human race. It's very easy to manipulate that process of resurrection, rebirth, death, what you call death, because it really isn't death. Very, very easy to manipulate and make you forget the true process. And this is why the feminine was demonified and taken out of every single one of your books. This is why the male mummies walk around with full facial skeletals, but every feminine mummy that they ever found, they bashed a hole in our face, because how you come back in as an incarnate is to be recognized. But whenever they change that recognition, then suddenly all you have is a feeling. Then you put up technology walls, and we had the internet. Internet was made from the Christ lines that were connected into all this. Christ is 3 DNA lines that married basically England, Scotland, and Ireland at a very specific point within your history. But it does not mean that nothing that came before it fucking mattered. It just meant that there was one line that bound 3. What my team has uncovered, and what we knew about 2 years ago as we were healing the DNA and walking through this, is that the main reason that we were here was because the European race would have been wiped out. The European race, what you call Britain, what you call England, at the end of days, that particular line was carrying what you would call the original Israelites. It's also why the Queen of England was there. It's also why she stayed alive as long as she did. How she ended up at the end of days is not how it started. The ones that knew and were doing to keep her queen so that she could rule the land. How many countries are still run by them? When are y'all going to have enough? See, we didn't make queens. Earth did. Humans did. What got lost here is the knowledge. What got lost here is the teachings. And this is a learning planet. What was completely denied was the true energetics of what a human body is capable of. And I'll also remind everybody that you were down here and you signed up to come here to Earth whenever you did it the first time, because this ain't the first time. You signed up to come here because as a human race, it was after death timelines, and we had to put a body back together so that we could hold this energetic without these reptilian energetic lines. In order to do that, you have to process this energy through your body. We are in a different place in space. It's not difficult. So I just wanted to come and make that statement today. This picture was at the John Baptiste Cemetery in Louisiana, right by and down from the Evergreen, right outside of Ophiuchus, which is Ophiuchus, Louisiana. White Cemetery, just down the street. And whenever I went, this beam of light came out of nowhere. This was October 8th or 10th, I believe. I was in Louisiana on my birthday, October 7th, 2020. They were trying to drive another hurricane through Louisiana. Everybody on the news was trying to tell you that there was a hurricane in Louisiana. I had already been to California and back and had been gone 44 days because my walk wasn't 40 days, it was 44 days, and it ended up being a whole hell of a fucking tricky motherfucker. We get back here into Texas and then this starts. All I knew is I had to get there. We rolled up into Bourbon Street, ended up parking at the church where the woman held off the fires in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the nun in the window. Louisiana's got the same story that Hilo, Hawaii has with the Pleiadian lava stopper. My car parked there. It was October 7th. It is 9 o'clock. I couldn't find a damn place to get a drink on Bourbon Street. Everything was closed. They weren't even allowing people to play instruments on the street after 8 o'clock. I stayed at St. Philip's house. There was a reason I had to be there. This is the link with Philip. What continued with an Andrew. And how you got a Beatrice that looks like she does. But I'm sorry. That's a Bellatrix. It's a bag of tricks. That night, I went to a little 7-Eleven store they got down there. It's not what they call them because it's just a little bitty corner place that you can... I bought a bottle of champagne. Me and Fernando walked outside, popped that champagne, and before we knew it, we had a party going on in the street. I walked back to the hotel, and right outside the hotel was a tarot reader. She had set up a little table right at the door where I walk into St. Philip's house. I walked up to her. It was an African-American girl. Spiritually, in New Orleans, they always recognized me, and I didn't have any idea what I was in for when I went back to the hotel room the night of my birthday. I kept hearing these energies in my head because I can speak to the unseen, because I do have connections all throughout the bloodlines. And in New Orleans, all I was hearing was vampires, witches, and wolves. Vampires, witches, and wolves. I walked up to her. I told her it was my birthday. She said, "Oh, this must be why I made this." She pulls a little organza bag out of her bag. She had some rice that she had dyed pink with a little bitty votive candle in it. She said, "Here, I think you need this." Fernando and I went into St. Philip's house, where I knew in that house that I had been raped. One of us in the line, because I always saw what happened in the line. I never specifically knew if it had happened to me, but if it happened to you, then it had happened to me. Fernando was a tarot reader, I wasn't. I grabbed a plate out of the cabinet. I poured that pink rice on the plate. I put the small votive candle in the middle, and I lit it. And I asked whatever I was doing there, however I needed to support, whatever I could do to make it happen. Asked Fernando to pull out his cards. And the first thing I heard is, "You got to channel the witches." So we start pulling cards, and I start hearing all types of bitching, basically. The vampires are doing this, and the wolves are doing this, and okay, it's what we got from the witches. What was next? The wolves. Now, we're highly connected into all of them. If you even go back through the Knights Templar and what the Holy Grail was, and who was made in order to guard the Holy Grail, then what you'll find is that they were, in fact, werewolves to an extent. The werewolves hunted black magic. The werewolves guarded the Grail. The werewolves were supposed to protect the Holy Grail, which is the bloodline, from all the black magic. Wolves changed a lot. Most of the hybridization that was done on this planet were from those family lines that were connected into Knights Templar, just as much, or actually even more so, than the ones that you would consider in the Grail. But inside the Grail is connected to those temples whenever you build a temple down here, isn't it? The wolves weren't really wolves in the end. I can't even exactly tell you what the F-balls it was. You go mixing static, and then you go mixing hybridization, and then you go mixing all these different ancient DNA patterns that they're digging up out of the ground in order to put underneath the microscope to mix all together. And then you make a dog man, and then you make a whole bunch of super soldiers out of the lines. Then it becomes way more like a lichen. And if you understand the original twins and the original sequences that happened long, long, long ago up in the area where you'd find Poland and Germany and this and that. And we talk about the original twins and why they were never allowed to come together, these star-crossed lovers. It's because one came from the wolf line and the other from a vampiric line, and there wasn't no way in hell balls that they's going to allow you to mix those together. Because if you mix those together, then what you get is a line that is way more powerful than any of the ones that came before it in separation. So I got the story from the wolves. I looked at Fernando. I don't even know if he remembers this. I haven't talked to him in years. I didn't say anything. I walked into the courtyard of St. Philip's house, grabbed a lantern. Lantern had a candle in it. I brought that lantern inside that room on my birthday. And I opened the lantern. And I stood in front of it. And I said some ancient light language. And then I blew it out. You can basically think at that point I was inside the catacombs. When me and Fernando drove in to New Orleans before, it was night when we got there before this happened, and I drove around the ancient cemetery. Fernando had never been to New Orleans. Whenever you're driving on the ground around the ancient cemetery, all it is a bunch of walls. You really can't see it. You forget exactly what's all in there. I drove those streets, did the light language, and called it all in. The only way to defeat what we defeated was inside the catacombs, which was the exact reason they continuously tried to flood New Orleans. The attempt was to flood the catacombs in order to disconnect everybody from what you'd call your ancient powers. If they flooded out the catacombs, made a hybridized version that only reported to them in a mercury charge on a vaccination, then all is lost. All is lost in the human race, because this is what you came from, whether you recognize it or not. It's what this world was made from, whether you recognize it or not. This was after death timelines that were never supposed to sustain as long as they did. And the truth is, as a human race, it became a whole bunch of cannibals down here. The ones that were still practicing the witchcraft and the ones that still held these scions, because it's what it was. And you have to remember that the Yahshua line had its own scion. That's why you can keep track. But just like Egypt was a point in between of a long, long cycle where a cosmic lineup had come in, and all we had done is do exactly what my team did with the rest of the healing human race for the last 8 years. There was no way, unless you had been basically a stigmata of spirit, that you could have lived through it. When we went back to New Orleans, August 2023, to end this, by this time, you can basically think of it as we came out the diamond of CERN. and projected back to the St. Helene. It was a miracle that we even got into the hotel. If I hadn't been there, if I hadn't done everything that I had done in New Orleans my entire freaking lifetimes, and the lines that were hooked into France and Paris and the Black Plague, and how this whole thing fucking got started with bloodletting and everything to begin with, there would have been no way that I could have even got back in that hotel in 2023 timeline. All of New Orleans was working with us. The whole thing was a giant bubble. It was absolutely amazing how it all went down. But when we left there, we knew that 350 deaths had occurred over that 3-day period in other timelines. Back to back to back to back, each of us ascending out of New Orleans to make a connection and not being able to because of how the energetics were being held above you and below you. This is why the whole world forgot about spirit. This is also why you think that it's not possible. It's also, I'm explaining to you why it wasn't. But that doesn't mean that that energy wasn't being captured in some other sense or form and utilized with the capabilities that are here that you are not aware of. We all did this together. The Christ program was a real program. It was a governmental program in the end days, but it was here and it was running. And all it was keeping these DNA strands pure, mixing them with as many damn people as they possibly could in order to water it down completely so that you wouldn't see those of us in the lines, and so that we would have to ascend and purify every single fucking person's karma in order to ascend it. And they didn't think it was possible. But this collective that was down here 2020 and 2025 did it. Every single ritualistic death, every single gang murder, every single one, whether it was being sacrificed to Christ or if it was being sacrificed to what they thought was Lucifer or Satan, it didn't matter what happened. That energy was used in the positive in order to help the line. And we purified every single piece of death down here to the point there wasn't any death left. And whenever you go purifying death, do you know what you get? Money currencies. So my team is here just cleaning the DNA so that the human race can survive whenever a takeover is happening to the human template in ways that takes a whole nother call and a whole nother energetic for me to explain to you, because I can't start with this picture and even get there. And then we end up being the processor for what everybody down here called the dollar, or a doll of Ra, a Ra doll. Then on top of that, the government goes, oh God, they work. Let's see if they can clean the national deficit. To all my collective that's sitting there with not a dime in your pocket, I want all of y'all to know you cleaned the national deficit. You cleaned every single coin down here. You cleaned every single money and transaction that's gone on since 2020 for sure. You've got more stake in it, and your dime is worth way more than their $2 billion on any fucking day. And that's why they want your money theirs ain't worth shit. So we're just here cleaning the human race. We're just here putting back. Now, I'll remind everybody that if this was going on in a non-technical time, this would have happened in the woods somewhere. We'd all been in the woods. We'd been in our family. We'd be down here cleaning the lines, and then we'd have war starting at our door. Surrounded at some point by some type of enemy that would mysteriously all get the Black Plague. They'd mysteriously all die because it won't be allowed to attack us, because if you take us out, then you don't exist. Instead, we end up doing it all on the internet, which had to be made because there's no way that we could have pulled this off, spread out all over Kingdom Come. Exactly. Kingdoms come. C-U-M. The internet was here for one reason. What I'm telling you right now. And the internet was made by a bunch of beings tied up in space and energy and electricity coming through their body. And then your DNA became charged, and now they got AI blood, right? So then we end up getting hunted because we affect the market. Then we end up getting hunted. And then they try to come bind us up again, because now they want to make flying cars and they want you to have digital currency. But the only reason you have digital currency is because we cleaned the dollar. And the only reason you got bit is because it's blood. And I've been telling y'all that since the get. Digital currency is not the problem. The problem is they're not telling you where the original bit was collateralized and why that decimal moved so far backwards. But we ain't going to hold it. We ain't going to process it. And we'd be just fine, because not only did we clear the human DNA, not only did we reestablish a new DNA sequence, but because of the all hell holy war that came after us after we cleaned your money, and then they saw that we knew how to clean it. So then they kept us trapped for another few thousand years, forcing and waking us up from basically what you'd call a Winter Soldier program, but is really happening right in front of your face. This is all the RH negatives and the ones that are around you that you've been claiming to be crazy this whole time. No, they just woke us up in order to process your shit. And then they come hunt us down because we're the most valuable person here, because they don't even know how to clean that shit. There ain't no way that you could do it without a whole network of us. Dimensional beings, what they wanted to call it. Well, the only reason it's dimensional beings because that's how far in space-time we stretched out. And I'm talking about you. Don't think I'm just talking about me. This is why we had to blow the wheel. There's a very specific process that the masculines have had to go through down here during processional counts. It's matching up with transactions and other timelines, and that's what your Epstein bullshit was all the fuck about. Everybody took their little secret information from their family lines, threw it all in a bucket, said, okay, we're going to rewrite all of these. And do you know what that list does? Gives you a house for $300. In 2018, I think, is when Austin had the big... But did you get the memo? No. So I don't give a flying fuck about real estate. You're talking to the one who was adopted in a Fannie Mae line and with a peel on that side. And I can promise you that family line didn't have shit compared to the ones up north that were running it. Now, we ain't got no problem working with everybody, but you ain't going to use us and then not give us anything. See, they thought that if because we made the moves. We sent out over 50 grand 2020 when the Royals were making moves. That's why I'm so solid in what I'm telling you. This wasn't just in my head. My team walked this all over the world and still are. Even down to when they were trying to run these sequences in Australia from some ungodly reason and tried to say that that was the Stewart. No, honey doll, we fucking got you. You put the whole world in an energetic charge and then you turn it on, and then you have certain DNA strands that are affected by certain frequencies and others that aren't. It's real fucking easy with propaganda and the subliminal codes from the stars that they had, because everything that I teach with Cohu 32 was channeled in this process, and it saved our ass, and it still is. Everyone that's ever got involved with us will tell you the same thing. That's why you don't know about it. It's 1109, 209, that's 101. You see 101, that's original seed. I don't know what's going to happen next. I know that the G-Core has come undone. There is massive, massive land that is going to fall because it's bound into a wiring that's sucking everything down instead of pulling everything up. This is what I talk about when I tell you that the government was supposed to announce this in July of 1973. And if you don't believe me, go look it up. August 1973, all the astronomers, the real ones that were back then that actually knew some of the shit I'm telling you, because astrophysics and quantum hotty-beak-and-bobby ain't nothing but everybody playing with a bunch of space that they shouldn't have been touching, including the ones who think they need to get to Mars. Your human body is the computer, and oh shit, you think your brain can't work as fast as a quantum processor? How the fuck do you think AI is running on a quantum processor? You think that that's just a machine that does it without the human race? Have you been around a bit, mine? Have you cared to go listen? Do you know what it's doing to the people that live around it? "52 years this world should have been preparing for what's happening right now. Instead, what they did is double down, team up, come against us, and think that all their money and whatever it is that they had in DNA from whenever the fuck back in history was going to somehow supersede the family that originally pulled the planet and proved Triple Crown. Now, if you're in a healing collective, I'm explaining what blood's forcing through your veins, what's trying to open you up. That recessive genes of every single DNA, which they called trash, is the first thing that we had to clean in order to heal everybody. And we just claimed the trash. They called us trash. They called your recessive genes trash. No. That's all you needed. So I'm going to end. It's 11/12/23. So it's a big day. Circle it on your calendar. The 23rd, not the 24th. And let's see what happens next. Good night.